Hi everyone, welcome to this month's edition of Technicolor. This month we're joined by a fabulous panel of fantastic people, and we're going to be discussing a movie called Raffiki. So first of all, I'll just like to introduce myself. So my name is Gloria Dongo, and I am a prevention and testing coordinator at Positive East. So I cover the boroughs of Tower Hamlets and Newham. Technicolor was the brainwave of my colleague Massimo, and it's basically a monthly LGBT film night and a safe space for people to meet and discuss different films. Originally, it was based in Ilford Library, but as of the current situation, we are now conducting everything online. So I think we'll just start and I'll get all the panelists to introduce themselves. So if we can start with Sebbie.
Hello, I'm Sebbie and I am a social media executive and freelance digital marketer and facilitator. I run a platform called YAP, which stands for You Are Power Collective, and we hold workshops around the Midlands and also in London to empower Gen Z and millennials. And I'm also a facilitator for diversity role models, facilitating workshops around being LGBT and what that means around schools in the UK.
Fantastic. Felicia?
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Felicia Bamgbose, so I'm a medical doctor. I work in East London. I also do quite a lot of voluntary work with organisations like Africa Advocacy to raise awareness for PrEP, which is an HIV prevention medication, and then some testing with Positive East, because my special interest is in sexual health and HIV.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Aisha.
Hello everybody, I'm Aisha Shaibu. I'm a volunteer manager for UK Black Pride. So I tend to say that I have my day job and I have my gay job. So during the day, I actually work in research in a chemistry lab. So I've been in the science industry for a couple of years now. And outside during my free time, I do volunteer for UK Black Pride, which is the largest kind of Black Pride celebration in Europe for anybody who's African, Caribbean, Middle Eastern, Asian, and the whole, anybody who feels like they don't fit into like the commercial spaces of Pride, they come to UK Black Pride. And what's quite special is next Sunday we'll be celebrating our 15th year anniversary. And so many people don't know that, you know, UK Black Pride has been around for that long. And so if you're free next Sunday, do tune in. It's going to be a whole like day of celebration of so many incredible artists within the UK. There's going to be loads of talks in our wellbeing area. There's a space in the Desi room for young queer folks. It's just a place where everybody can feel like they belong. You know, that feeling of home, especially now during COVID, is more important than ever. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you this evening.
Thank you for joining us. We're really happy that you've all agreed to join us on this day and, you know, discuss this film with us. So basically, I mean, I did mention earlier that the film that everybody has watched and that we'll be discussing is called Raffiki. Raffiki is a film about two ladies, and it's set in Kenya, in Africa. The two main characters in the film are Ziki and Kenna. So let's just get into it. What did everybody think of the film?
Well, I thought it was a beautiful film. And I'm Kenyan, and I was also born in Nairobi, where either all of the film was filmed or the majority of the film was filmed. And being a member of the LGBT community myself, like, it was so empowering and really lovely to see kind of these relationships happening in my home country. And I don't often see representation, and growing up I hadn't seen many versions of African love stories, let alone African LGBT love stories. So for me it was also affirming and just like a beautiful film. I love the colours, I love the songs. I already downloaded the playlist onto my phone. Like, yeah, Raffiki was a good one.
Oh,
Yeah, the soundtrack was
Powerful.
is incredible, isn't it? It
Yeah.
perfectly, and like what I really liked as well, like you were saying about the colors, I thought it was so beautiful, and all of the juxtaposition of all the beautiful bright colors, which to me is just like it's such a very African thing. It's like all
The
of the countries in
vibrant,
Africa.
yeah.
So yeah, exactly. It's so vibrant. So yeah, I also really enjoyed the film, and I thought it was really, really wonderful to see a film about. So it like the premise of it is quite a typical premise, as it were, like, you know, two people who come, you know, their parents don't like each other, but the way that it was done I thought was really beautiful, and it was really lovely that it was set in Africa. It was two women, and it wasn't like a stereotype type film. It wasn't cheesy, there were no gimmicks to it. It felt very real to me, which I really liked.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, like with both of you, you know, and what I loved about it was how light it was. You know, I feel like in terms of the narrative that comes out of our community, sometimes it can be quite heavy. You know, I love the fact that it had a mixture of both. You know, you had the joy, you had the sorrow, and then you had the in-between. It didn't feel like a fantasy. I love the fact that it was realistic, and similar to what you both said, the colors and the visual effects were beautiful. And I love the fact they didn't focus on the negative side of what most people tend to see about Africa. I mean, for me, my family are from Ghana and Nigeria, and to see like Kenya being actually visible like that, I thought it was brilliant. You know, it makes me want to head off to Nairobi. It makes me, you know, it shows you that
Come
beauty.
on, girl.
The film that you know, I miss. I haven't been back in a while, and I'm just like, damn, I miss Africa. I need to go back. Like, look at
Yeah.
this beauty, and showing their love. Their love seemed very innocent, very pure, and I think it showed that it could happen to anybody. It didn't look like they were falling to certain stereotypes. It looked very natural. So I really enjoyed it.
I thought it was a very good film. I liked as mirroring the things, but you know, everyone has said previously. You know, the colors in it, the realness. I felt like it was very real. I feel like a lot of people could relate to the storyline that was in there, which I thought was fantastic. Sebbie, the first question is for you. You did mention that you are from Kenya, and you also, you know, and you also identify as a member of the LGBT community. So, how did you feel this film was different or similar to your experiences as a Kenyan living in the UK?
I think the main thing was just the freedom. I feel like, especially being part of this community, I feel like in England, I'm more free to be who I want to be and I can express. And yet in Kenya, it feels the exact same way. So for me, being Black and LGBT, it feels like here, I can express my queerness more. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can be free to hold hands with a woman in the street, and I can be free to talk about how I want to. And then in Kenya, it feels like I can be as Black as I want to, and I can express myself in that way, and they're more like-minded people as I am back home. So I feel like that's something that I was thinking about. And also one thing that's similar, and I don't know whether it's me being a Kenyan in the UK or actually just any African in the UK, is that religion. So whereas maybe the politics in this country aren't governed by religion as they are in Kenya, it still feels like religion is a very, very big part of being Black and a very, very big part of being African. And it's ingrained in our culture. And I felt like that was very much a similarity of when you belong to the LGBT community, being queer is something that is seen as wrong, or is seen as something that is immoral, or is seen as a mental illness. And though I'd expect it to feel much different as being an LGBT African in the UK, actually I'm still in those groups, I'm still in those circles, I'm still at church, etc. I'm still in those spaces where it's still a taboo. And that's something that I found, even though it's meant to feel like it's a lot different, it's something that actually does feel quite similar to the film. And I'm just hoping for change. And that's something that I feel like the film encouraged as well, of actually, you know what, we're opening up, and we're overcoming being in an oppressive society.
Definitely. And this is a question for anybody. Does anyone have any comments on the experiences of LGBT people in the rest of Africa? I know, Aisha, you mentioned that you're from Ghana. I'm not sure if you've got any insight into that.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, when I was part of my childhood, I actually grew up in Nigeria. So my family are partly from Nigeria and partly from Ghana. So when I was young, my mom was like, you know what, you need to go live the African way. You need to go and understand where you're from. So literally she shipped me over there, and I spent like a good part of my childhood over there. And as I grew older, I went to Ghana on holidays, etc. But what I did realize was there is a big community of queer people in Nigeria and in Ghana. But again, religion plays such a big part, although sometimes you can tell or you can see or you might know some of them are queer, they're of course not visible and they don't want to come out because of course it is illegal, it's not safe. And while some people, for example, my mom knows a lot of queer people, it's fine essentially for some of them as long as they don't show it. You know, she go, oh, well, I know so many queer people in Ghana, for example. I had a friend who did this or did that, but as long as they never saw them doing it, it's almost better. So it's almost that denial. It's like, yes, do you know what it reminded me of? I forgot her name. There was the older woman and her, I don't know whether it was her daughter, but they were the gossip of the
Oh,
town.
Mama Atim.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always one of them in every
Yep.
little town, in every area, who is like the news broadcaster of the whole local community. Yeah, there's always people like that want to spread around rumors. And I think that's mainly, it's a big issue because that's why so many people are afraid about coming out in case of being seen. Even for me here in London, it took me a while to come out and to accept myself because it's like, although London is big, which auntie is going to see you and go and tell your mom? You know, you're holding somebody's hand or you're kissing. Who's going to see you? You know, you don't want to do that. And for me, I actually left London. I studied up in Norwich, and that's where I found the confidence to be myself. And later on, when I came back, I'm like, I don't care which auntie and uncle knows. And the more I came out, the more they started to kind of accept it. I didn't need to explain myself. And I think it helped some of them actually come out as well. So there's some older queer aunties that started coming out and asking me questions. Aisha, oh, I think I'm gay. Where do I go find people like me, you know, my age? So it is very, very interesting because I feel like for so long, so many of us will and do hide it until we start to see little cracks and light that maybe it's okay. You know, similar to the fact that there was another gay guy in the community. You know, it's like kind of, you need to find one another. You need to start creating this tribe and it kind of starts to feel a little bit better. There is a bit of hope.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's also strength in numbers. So when you've got people, you know, safe spaces and people, you know, similar, you know, you feel strong, you feel stronger that way. This is a question that's coming from somebody, and it says, Africa is often portrayed as a homophobic content. The film was set in Kenya. Do you feel that the attitudes are changing in East Africa? But, you know, we can answer about, you know, Africa in general. Does anybody want to answer that one?
I think, oh no, go on, Sebbie.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think the attitudes are definitely changing. I mean, in 2019, Kenya was the first country to at least incorporate an intersex category into their census. And that's just one thing where I'm thinking, do you know, and that was in 2019 and it's only 2020. And I just think, even though they rejected it again, they rejected the law, unfortunately, for same-sex marriage, I think, you know, to be legal. I still believe that there are people fighting and organizations are fighting to be heard and fighting to bring about change. And also, I was talking to my parents actually, and I said, you know, when Kenna and Ziki, that's it. When Kenna and Ziki were taken by the mob and beaten, I feel like that is something that happens a lot less now, but they said, you know, it still happens and it's still happening, but slowly there is change being brought about, and there is a kind of like people are acknowledging that being queer and being part of the LGBT community isn't actually a mental illness, and this is something that is very real. Again, religion governs, but I feel like more people are becoming open. I think that's just to do with time and the times that we're living in.
Felicia, was there something that you'd like to add?
So I was just going to say that I feel like, first and second generation immigrants that have come to the UK from various different countries in Africa that I see in my clinic, I think one of the common themes that I see is that I get quite a few patients who are very concerned about how I'm going to respond to them if they talk about being in any way LGBTQ plus, because there seems to be this sort of preconception that because I am I'm clearly an African woman, there's always a concern initially that I may be homophobic or something. So I think that stereotype is definitely prevalent, within our own community. So there are still quite a lot of steps that personally I take, and that I know other colleagues of mine take in clinic, like making sure that we wear rainbow lanyards, making sure that we're visibly, allies. But I do think that even, irrespective of whether or not you're still living in Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, or whether or not actually your family have come here, there are still definitely things that we need to address within our cultures about homophobia. But I think that potentially the way that we look at them, and this idea that Kenya is homophobic, I think that's a little bit too one-dimensional. I think actually it's a lot more complex than that, because there are definitely people who are LGBT in Kenya, and there are definitely people in this country who are from Kenya, Uganda, parts of Africa that are LGBT, and there's definitely a community for it. And I think there's also more tolerance than people give sort of credit for, because exactly like Sebbie said, there are definitely people fighting for rights in the same way that there are people in this country who are of English descent still fighting for various rights for people who are LGBT.
No, that's really true. And it was a really important thing when you said the people that you encounter when you're at work. I also feel like when I'm doing testing in the community, I feel like some people often are a bit apprehensive when they see that you're a fellow Black person. People are not maybe as confident when they're describing sort of, who they've been having sex with and the kind of sex they've been having. But I always try and make them feel as comfortable as I can, make sure that they know that this is a non-judgmental safe space. The more information you give me, the better advice I can give you. And we're an open and honest working place. Another question I'd like to ask you specific, Felicia, is what are the sexual health related implications of these issues? Can you tell us a bit more about the LGBT Africans that you see in your clinic in the UK? I know you've been doing a lot of work with PrEP and prejudice. Do you have any insight into how that's been going? Hello, and how that's a bit insight about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the reasons that Africa Advocacy set up PrEP and Prejudice is because, PrEP is used to try and prevent HIV. So it's a medication that you can take every day. If you take it and you come into contact with someone who's positive but is still detectable, so still able to pass HIV on, then it provides you with protection from it. And I think the awareness of that within the LGBT community and within the African community is kind of slightly different. So what we're finding is that gay men who tend to be targeted for PrEP because they're at higher risk of HIV, gay men who are white and who are of a higher socioeconomic background tend to have quite good awareness of PrEP. But when you come to African men and Black men, and then when you also come to heterosexual women who are Black, who are also sometimes in high risk categories, they either don't have an awareness of PrEP, they don't have an understanding of it, it's never been addressed with them. And so, I mean, the way that you see that manifest is that statistically speaking, when we're looking at how effective PrEP is and we're looking at the rates of HIV falling, we're seeing that the rates of HIV, while they are falling in the Black community, they're not falling as quickly as they are in the Caucasian community. And if you look at the spotlight reports on HIV, which give you the data for how many people have been infected with HIV and things like that, you can see that Black people are much more likely to be diagnosed later with HIV. And if you're diagnosed later with HIV, then your outcomes tend to be worse. And I think part of that is because part of it is from a medical side of things, whereby often people in the Black community are labelled as difficult to reach. I've heard that quite a lot. And that they're very, very difficult to engage with, when actually we're just not engaging with people in terminology that makes sense to them. There's a huge history of really poor treatment of Black people within science and research and medicine and being taken advantage of. So I think really there's a natural distrust from some Black people when you start telling them, oh, you should take this medication, it will stop you from getting HIV. I think we need to do a lot more work to raise awareness and to build that trust back with people in the Black community, because I think part of the problem is a lot of people don't necessarily come to clinic and so won't ever be able to get that information. On top of that, you do have the whole issue with intersectionality of Black people being subject to racism and so not being allowed into some LGBT spaces, which means that they then don't have that environment to get the information that they need about keeping themselves safe.
No, definitely. Fantastic. This is just a question going back to the film. There's a lot of intersectionality. So Ziki and Kenna are both daughters of politicians. When Ziki's family when Ziki's family find out about her relationship, they send her to the UK. So she clearly has the means to be sent to the UK. And it seems there's a lot of issues, you know, around nationality, ethnicity, politics, sexuality, and, you know, economic situation. They all coincide in this film. Can you tell us a bit more about any intersections that coincide in your own lives? Is there anything that you've seen that you can identify with in the film?
Well, I can go first. I mean, I think for me, my upbringing is similar. I can bring to that. So I was fortunate that my mum could take me over to Nigeria, but also to bring me back to study here. And I think that's not always so easy. I was fortunate that I was born in the UK, so therefore I can travel back and forth, almost get like the best of both worlds, essentially. And obviously that comes through that economic side. And she was fortunate that she came to the UK when there was a big drive for nurses. So she became a nurse. She came into the UK. She became, you know, one of those people that managed to come through that way. And back then it was a lot easier to get settlement. But that's not the case for everybody. And I think that plays a major role, for example, in terms of education, being able to go to university here and to get a degree, you know, for me as well. If I was to stay and to have stayed in Nigeria, the way I view the world would be far more different, you know, in terms of the people that I've managed to surround myself with, just being exposed to a variety of things from around the world, and to have means of traveling and learning, because I think the biggest thing and the hardest thing is exposure. You need to be aware, you need to be in a space where you're able to learn, where you're able to see things. And if you can't see people that are like you, or people that sound like you, people who have ambitions, you know, like you, you're never gonna be able to get out of the narrative of what you're supposed to be. I mean, for me, if I was in Nigeria, I come from a Muslim family. At 16, my cousins were getting married off. You know, they have multiple children now, whereas that was not my story because I wasn't brought up in the same way. You know, so it really, really does make a huge difference in terms of our whole lives, essentially.
No, that's really true. And I mean, it was really good that you highlighted the impact of role models. I know, Sebbie, you do a lot of work with, you know, being a role model for, was it the diversity?
Role models, yeah.
Diversity role models. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that and the work that you do in the community with?
Yeah, so just before lockdown, I just completed my facilitator like training. So before I was a role model for diversity role models. What we do all around London and in the West Midlands, we go to schools and give a 1-hour workshop, and it's essentially we start with like a scramble of words like YAG. Okay, what do you guys think that is? Yay, and different words, and try and you know, and we try and debunk myths as well. So we have where they can ask us questions about our sexuality, etc. And what my role involved as role model was actually going up, standing in front of a class of, you know, 20 to 30 children and saying, my name is Sebbie, this is my coming out story. And so it's a big part of the workshops to have a facilitator and a couple of role models to give their coming out story and give the space for them to ask questions, and letting them know that it is a safe space and they can ask questions if they want to. And we ask at the beginning of the workshops, you know, do you use any of these words, say the calling people queer, calling people the F word, things like that? And we do like a little heads down, thumbs up of exactly who uses these phrases. How would you react if your classmate told you they were gay, etc.? And we ask them questions at the beginning, and then we really get to see the shift at the end of the 1 hour in terms of, okay, we ask them the same question again. Who again will use the word queer to offend, and to call your friend, etc., or say something is gay, etc. And we see a huge reduction. In fact, a lot of the time it's nobody by the end of the workshop. And so I find they're really helpful for educating young people about LGBT and really making it a safe space, because sometimes they ask questions which aren't offensive, but that you can tell that we've given them the space to ask whatever they want to ask, and they go for it. Like the questions that you think a trans person may not want to answer, or a gay person may not want to answer, we give them the space to do that. And if it's a bit too inappropriate, we just respectfully say, we can, and you can ask your sex and education teachers about this, because we're not there to teach that. We're there to talk about LGBT plus and what it means, and how they can then make it a safe space for their other classmates and going forward in life also.
Fantastic. I just had a quick question. Somebody's asked about the statistics around BAME communities, BAME LGBT plus communities in London, and the statistics around people living with and affected by HIV. Felicia, do you have any more insight into that? Or
so I don't know them off the top of my head. That Spotlight London do a report on all different sexually transmitted infections. They do one specifically for HIV. So they will have the most up-to-date statistics. I think the last one that I looked at, I know that the rates of HIV diagnosis, late HIV diagnosis, were twice as high in Black communities as they were in Caucasian. So it was 27 versus 54%. And I can't remember any other statistics off the top of my head, but if you want some actual numbers and some factual evidence, that's a good place to start. Otherwise, AIDS map, they will have some articles that detail from, so they covered the AIDS 2020 conference recently as well. And so they'll have some sort of up-to-date news around more recent things that have been going on. So those are probably two websites I can direct you to that should be quite helpful.
Fantastic. This half an hour has literally flown by.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
It's gone quickly. I feel like this wasn't enough time to discuss everything that we wanted. But I think as a final question, I'd like to ask everybody, what do you think we can take away from Raffiki? I mean, I know when it was initially released in Kenya, it created quite a storm. It was banned. The director sued the film agency in Kenya, and they got it reinstated, and it was sold out, and it's been a massive hit in the continent. But moving forward, as people working with, and some of us identify as part of the LGBT community, what are the lessons we can learn from Raffiki? And also, what would you like people to take away from this? Aisha, I know you mentioned you've got the the UK Black Pride coming next week, so what would you like to tell us, just a quick run through a bit more about that, so what people can look out for, how can they access it? And then also Felicia and Sebbie, you can give us a bit more information about what you'd like us to take away from here, and a bit more about the work that you do, if you've got anything exciting in the pipeline and things like that.
Sure. So next week, well, not next week, Sunday. We're in this week already. Oh, being at home, we lose so track of time. But yeah, Sunday, 16th of August, UK Black Pride are celebrating the 15th anniversary. So it's going to be a big birthday. It's all going to be digital. So we don't want anybody to turn up there. So it's all going to be digital. We have our main stage kind of digital room. We'll have incredible, exciting artists who are going to be performing throughout the afternoon. It's going to be from 12 o'clock till 6 p.m. And then we have multiple smaller rooms, and these rooms consist of similar thing to what we've just done now, where there's going to be a range of discussions, a range of poetry, a more intimate kind of topics based on self-care, mental health. And then we've got other subsections such as the Desert Room and the Young Queer Folks. So the thing about UK Black Pride is about inclusion. You know, it's not about just focusing on one part of our community. It's about giving a platform for everybody. And I would say for anybody who hasn't been to UK Black Pride to absolutely attend, because it's nothing like you've ever been to before. I mean, just to be in a sea of people that look like you, that are there for a good time, the energy, you come in and already it's almost like a load just gets lifted off your shoulder. Nobody is going to be looking at you any different. You know, we're all in the same boat. It's a very, very safe space where you can also learn and form different friendships. So, I mean, fingers crossed for next year. I think it's going to be bigger than ever. So if you can attend it in person, do come next year. But I think to give you a real taste of what it's all about, join us live, tune in and out all day long, because we've got exciting DJs, incredible announcements. Really don't miss it. Don't miss it, whatever you're doing on the Sunday. So that's all I want to say really regarding UK Black Pride. And I think events and spaces like this helps progress in terms of where we're going to be in the future. And also, even here in the UK, I mean, homosexuality wasn't legalized till like 1969, and even in the WHO disease catalog, you know, homosexuality was still on there until 1991. So for us saying, oh, you know, Africa is so homophobic, we have a long way to go. Even here in the Western world, we had a long way to go, and we're still fighting. But I think we're taking the right steps forward, and religion plays a really crucial part. But I think more and more people are aware that both can coexist, and that, because that is also sometimes a massive issue. But yeah, I'd just like to leave you with that. And the fact is, whatever you're doing on Sunday, you're turning up at UK Black Pride.
I'll be there.
We've been told. Okay.
Be there. Sebbie?
I think for me, I would just like people to go away with the thought of being able to be unapologetic, and being able to be confident. Like, confidence is such a big thing for me. And yeah, I really want to encourage people. There's a line that Ziki says in the film, and it goes along the lines of, you know, don't you want me to show you how I feel when I'm feeling it? Like, what's wrong with me doing that? Like, is that not what you? And I think that was really powerful for me, because it really, you know, if you've got the privilege, if you're able to, or even if you haven't, you can still show your family, etc. Being able to tell people exactly how you feel when you're feeling it is so important. And I think the fact that it's been banned in Kenya just shows exactly why it's important for more people to view the film all over the world. And people, you know, if you've got a Black colleague who may be LGBT, or a Black friend, or etc., reaching out to them and just listening to their stories and being that listening voice, and that you can, you know, be an ally also. Yeah, just go in with confidence and be able to say how you really feel, because a lot of people aren't able to, and a lot of people don't have that privilege to do that.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Felicia?
I suppose from my perspective, it would just be that even though I am a Black woman working in health, I am very pro LGBT. I try really hard to advocate for my patients, and I think I can understand completely. It's really, really intimidating going into a sexual health clinic or talking to anyone about your sexual health, especially, I mean, my Nigerian family, the idea of speaking to any of them about my sexual health fills me with dread. But I think if you know, if you have any concerns, if you're worried, if you think that, you know, you're the only one, trust me, you're not the only one. I will have seen it before. I will have spoken to someone very similar to you before. And I think if you have concerns, if you have questions, we're here to help. So, you know, either book a telephone appointment at your local clinic, because at the moment we're not doing walk-ins, or, you know, there are some really good online resources as well. Positive East are obviously fantastic as well for information. And I think, yeah, just taking care of yourself and not feeling like, because sometimes I think it can be very, very isolating, especially not even just anything to do with being LGBT, but being a Black person in this country can sometimes feel very, very isolating. So when you put on top of that, then also being part of the LGBT community, sometimes it can feel very, very overwhelming. But there are lots of other people who are Black, who are in the LGBT community, who want to help and who want to party with you on Sunday. So yeah, just try and join the community.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And I also read you were doing some work with decolonizing contraception, is it?
Oh yes, yes. So we had a festival planned called Sex Fest. Unfortunately, it was planned in March, and so that has unfortunately been postponed. But yeah, so Decolonizing Contraception is a fantastic organisation actually. So they were set up to try to. So as I was saying earlier, that medicine has quite a bad history in terms of their treatment of Black people in general. So it's to try to tackle some of the sort of hierarchical systems that have been left in place that oppress Black people in sexual health. So they're a great organisation. You should check them out. When we do the Sex Fest, I would definitely recommend that you come when we can finally put it on. But in the meantime, they're doing lots of online talks and lots of things as well to try and help with people's mental health. So yoga and things like that. So have a look at the website. They're really good.
Thank you all so much. The only thing I'd like to add is at the minute, Positive East, obviously we're not testing face-to-face, but we are supporting people with testing over Teams. So if you would like to book a full STI screening with us, we can support you with that via Teams. If you'd like to contact us and ask any questions, we've got the love chat on our website, so you can find out all this information, and it's all dotted over our Facebook page. But thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate it, and I've had a fantastic time. These 30 minutes, well, it's gone more to 40 minutes, has flown by, but thank you all so much. And yeah, thank you. That's all I can say, I guess. Cheers.
A pleasure.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thanks for having us.
No,